My brothers, Hebrew Dixon here, the 37th General President candidate, and I'm here to introduce what we call our communication hub. We welcome you to come and engage it, to connect with us on our social platforms, and make sure you engage the Alpha Relevancy app and empower that to be this tool that we know it can be. Brothers, I appreciate your support. We need your prayers. We need your bodies in the game. So we look forward to engaging with you as we continue the process and begin the convention and chapter conversations and ultimately walking our way to Dallas. God bless you all. Have a great evening.
I've been getting a lot of correspondence via email,
right?
And, from other candidates. And I'm just curious, what are your top 3 priorities for the fraternity?
Great question.
Forward?
Yes. It's founded in our platform. Brotherhood is key. We feel that brotherhood is something that we can always do better with. I think it's great. We can be better at it in our connections with our younger brothers, making sure we value that in our understanding of what the middle brothers need. And more importantly, the brothers that are so-called aging out, let's not them age out. Let's let them share their benefits and their years of experience with the not so young and the young brothers. So my key piece is brotherhood. The next will be leadership. We need to be the tip of the spear. It's clear that the world needs Alpha to step in certain places now, and we support that. We also need to understand what is our value proposition in the finance space. We need to look at our numbers and make sure that we get the return on our investment that we need to have. And in the context of brothers and leadership, we need all hands on the oars, meaning we need all the active alphas, all the alphas that have been initiated over our many years to be a part of the execution strategy as we serve our communities. And lastly, and I would say more importantly, to be very candid with you, is economics. We need to understand the value of the aggregate of our strength. I call it alpha capital. Alpha capital is something that we're coining as a phrase, but it's a serious concept because we need to measure who we are so we can renegotiate our place in some of our relationships in corporate and government, and make sure brothers understand our values so they can see value in coming back and adding to the collective, because 2 and 2 equals 5. The sum is always greater than the parts. So those 3 priorities are the priorities of the Alpha generational relevance conversation that we've been having across this country. It's something that we are very passionate about, but more than passion, it's logic. It makes business sense. It makes sense for a time such as this. We need to be the tip of the spear. And we're proposing those 3 things and others, because if we have those things, the issues of social justice will be manned because we have the bodies to service it. The issues of being in the electoral process of this country and the school boards and the Senate and the Congress and the states and the federal level, we'll have more bodies to put on that. As it relates to Black and brown men and women, the relationships will be better because we'll nurture the brothers in the fraternity to service some of their needs, perhaps it's not being served. So all those things being equal, we need a village, if you will, to save the children and to raise a child, but we need the village of Alpha to step in like it's never been done before. Great question, though. Sorry for the long answer.
Brother Dixon, as part of your platform, you reference leadership, economics, and brotherhood.
Yes.
And the leadership part, I think, is particularly important at this day and time. And can you drill down a little bit in terms of where you see, what your vision is with respect to the fraternity as it relates to the issues that are germane to our society, both within the African-American community and beyond?
Absolutely. It's a double-edged sword, my brother, because we need to take a stronger stance in our communities for very true leadership purposes, right? One, making sure that we say the things that need to be said to the power bases of this country, the things that impact the Black and brown people across this world. We need to make sure we have an authentic, realistic, and specific conversation in that space. It could be that we aggregate our power in the Divine Nine. It could mean that we empower the NAACP to do more, the Urban League to partner, but we need to be in those front-facing conversations that make sure that all our resources are used better than it has been in the past. All of us are turning older, 100 plus, but we need to kind of retool our machine, if you will, to make sure we're serving the needs of the Black and brown engine that we call communities, the folks that come behind us. We need to make sure we are parting the way for them, parting the sea, if you will, to make sure that their promised land is what it should be. That's the external leadership. Internal, there is a definite opportunity to be able to engage young brothers in a new way, making sure that they're clear what their value proposition is, what their responsibility is. That takes real leadership to make sure we connect with them and not put them as a ancillary unit of the organization, that they are a viable part of it. They're our future. So we need to reinvest in them in a way that we can not only take pictures with and feel good about, but we can measure and harvest and understand if we're doing it right. Because maybe we won't get it right the first time, but we're going to try to, but we have to measure it to make sure that we can grow instead of groan about certain issues, and that we can celebrate our successes and others. So those kind of leadership skills we need to do. And lastly, from our organization, we need to understand if we're doing things great, let's applaud that. But if we're not, let's look at changing, perhaps revamping in some cases, because we cannot only do the same thing and expect different results, but we can do the same thing and have bad results. And that would be catastrophic to what we want to do. And perhaps it's a great thing in a silo, but as an aggregate, we will never be able to measure what those things are if we don't retool our machine, if you will, from that context. So those three areas of leadership: external, internal leadership, and then an internal focus on our own base and our own power to make sure we ensure this generational conversation is real. Yeah. Absolutely. Great question. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Brother Dixon, I'm going to ask you a generational question.
Okay.
So at the end of your term, looking back, how do you communicate with the people, and what will they say about your tenureship for the young generation, the newly pledged, for those who are mid-career and those who are older?
Sure.
What would each of those groups tell you?
Well, interesting. That's a long book, but let me just pull out the high-level chapters from a Cliff Note perspective. One, they'll say that he was a brother's brother, and he was a servant leader. Second, they will get this prayerfully a renewed sense of commitment to the fraternity. They will understand that being in this organization that we both love, that you have to pledge your life to. The younger brothers and the older brothers will see that, and many of them do now, and perhaps we can renew that excitement in them. But in some cases, they don't. And we need to make sure that the new brothers who come in to this great organization understand that lifelong commitment. Second, we'll change our culture. We'll talk about economics in a new way. We'll be able to measure how we spend our money in our communities and be able to understand not only when we spend it, but how it recycles itself back to us, and how we can learn how to do that better. Because the first time we're learning because we haven't done it, but we're going to evaluate that and make sure we tweak it as best we can so we can make sure we get the greatest harvest. Lastly, we'll be able to understand the return on our investment from all our national partners. We'll understand how to leverage our alpha capital with new and existing national partners to make sure our return on our investment is what it should be. And perhaps we have a renewed understanding of what it should be because we see our power and our strength. And then lastly, we'll be able to have a headquarters called the Jewel Development Center. That is something that all brothers in this organization, new and old, will be proud of, because it'll be an engine that creates money, an engine that values the office needs that we currently have, and a place of rest and communication for those in this organization. When there's a crisis or something to celebrate, we'll have a place to go and report that and have dialogue about it and lead not only in the country, but across this globe in that space. So it's called the Jewel Development Center for those three things. And then the last thing, and I said the last thing twice, but I'm an AME preacher, so I'll close 3 times, is that we would be able to understand that it's not about an administration. It's a strategic conversation that everybody has something to do at their point in time, and we would have done ours, but we will not done ours in a silo. We would look at the current general president and his administration, and then we'll make sure we level the playing field and we harvest all we can. That's great. And that we prepare this new ground, if you will, this fertile ground that we'll create for the next brother that's coming along, so we can keep pushing forward. Long answer to your question, but great question. Thank you so much. The Jewel Development Center came out of the work that I led as chairman of the Building and Maintenance Fund. We looked at our current headquarters and we had to renovate it because it had challenges. It had leaking roofs. We had challenges with asbestos. We had structural challenges and exterior challenges, and our exterior parking lot needed work. The team understood what that was, and we prepared a fix for those. And that's why our brothers who came to Baltimore for the General Convention had a place to come that was working, that was wonderful, and they wrote home about it, I'm sure. But in that conversation, we looked at our perimeter activities and the band just outside our perimeter as far as what's going on in the Baltimore community, how we had to perhaps repurpose our headquarters. We've looked at doing a different configuration of it. We repurposed it as apartments. We looked at the market and see what people would invest as a buy for the building if we wanted to exit completely for it. Understanding is part of that Maryland Historical Trust. We looked at all of those things, and what we found out is you could not repurpose it because it's not physically situated to do that. So we looked at what we call the Jewel Development Center as a viable way that we could have a place of business that we would all be proud of. What is it, you ask? It's a multi-storied facility that is the top three, particularly stories would be business, particularly for our headquarters. The middle 12 or 7 stories would be hospitality, because what we know for sure is that hospitality makes money. And the last floor, perhaps 2, will be a conference center, so our board could have a place to meet, so we can have a rally point for any issues in our community by a command center, and then we can invite the community around wherever it sits to be able to come and learn and grow in a training development way. The Jewel Development Center services those needs that we have now, but more importantly, it serves the needs that we not yet understand that we will have. But the real question that we asked ourselves, is it a income producing facility? The answer is absolutely yes. We need to have an alternate source of income for our organization so we can understand, again, our alpha capital, so we can begin to understand how we rest in this space called buildings, if you will, and making sure that we get all we can out of a space and that we can look at other ways to use our money as far as our headquarters is concerned as relates to the appendages that we have on our intake program. We won't get into the details of the plate of intake right now, but we need an alternate to that, and this is particularly one of those things that could serve in that capacity.
Our brothers of the old gold and black, I'm Brother Hebrew L. Dixon III, the 37th General President candidate, your choice for the next leader of this august body. I'm talking to my young brothers right now. The torch that's in our campaign that you see behind me is yours to hold. You have a seat at the table. We need you here to engage and grow and become the leaders that we all have faith that you will be. The fraternity is depending upon you to take the mantle. I have 41 plus years in this amazing organization, a brotherhood of black and old gold. We ask that you just come and learn and grow with us. And I'll share with you this. We'll listen to your ideas. We'll be open to your participation. And together, we will make this august body what we all anticipate that this communities of black and brown across the globe need for this time in our history. Have a blessed day.
I'm going to ask you a generational question, and I want you to take the perspective looking back. What will people say in different generations, newly pledged, mid-career, and post-career, about the frat under your leadership?
There's unique categories that I think we're going to have this discussion in this evening. One is that the brothers that come in this organization through our process and preferably after that will understand they're coming in something that they see immediate value in. They see where they fit. That generation that is newly initiated into this organization will be clear their role as they look at how they learn leadership. And we have several different categories in that space. One, we have college brothers coming in. They need a different type of relationship with alumni, if you will. But I call it mentor brothers, if you will. And we have brothers that are perhaps older that come into the fraternity that may know life, may have some business skills, but don't know how the fraternity and frat, as you call it, how that works. They'll be able to understand how they fit into that equation, how they can add value to that equation. Most importantly, how that experience helps them be lifelong brothers, pledge their lives to Alpha. So that's that first piece, that middle piece. The brothers that's the 25-year-old and the maybe 40 or 50-year-old brother, they'll begin to understand how they continue to grow in Alpha. It could be through the leadership training that's going on currently. It could be through understanding what our power is as an organization. And then they finally see, because those brothers are older and they'll finally coming into their own right, and they can see where their many skill sets and their relationship matrix, how they add value to what we need to do perhaps then and perhaps what we need to do down the road. And in the other group, which you and I may be a part of, we were in Leadership Atlanta in 2007. That will be the group that will understand that time is not up. There are so many skill sets and blessings that we had in our lives that we can not only appreciate, but begin to look at refocusing them for those two groups that I just talked about. We have to be able to wring that rag out, because that's where we talk about the elders in the villages. We've been taught all our lives about the African culture that we come from, is that we are now those that are responsible for wringing out our experiences, the way we deal with things, and more importantly, being that listening ear for some of these younger brothers and some of these middle brothers to be able to say, what did you do? How did you do that? I want to do this. Can I do that? Can I dream big? Because we can help in that space. So we have all a very precise and measurable role, but everybody's needed at the table. Those are the things I think when we get through with our administration, looking at the next, we'll have a battle army crew of alpha men, unlike in the past, that we can say they are ready and willing and able to be the tip of the spear as we talk about economics, as we talk about leadership, and as we talk about brotherhood. Yes, my brother. Yep. My brother's Alpha Capital. That's one of the major conversations that we're having across this country. Economics is so needed in our world right now. We need to understand where we sit into the value of this community that we serve called the world. We need to understand what our buying power is. We need to understand how the dollar circulates in our communities. We need to understand where we spend our money and make sure that we more than understand it, that we measure it, that we put it in place, and we empower Black and brown businesses to be better. Yes, they have to service us at the highest level. That's a given. But in our conversation, we must, wherever we go, in our general organization, in our regional structure, in our district structure, in our chapters as well, we need to understand how we can recycle the dollars in our community to make sure we can harvest them. So at some point in our future, we'll be able to say that we've recycled $1 billion in our community, or $500 million in our community, whatever the number is, but we must know that number. The only way we know that number is that we measure that number. It's a corporate measurement conversation. It's time for us to engage that strategy, and we must do it now. And with a generational relevance strategy, we will engage that, we will execute that, and we'll be able to deliver and report the great results, because I believe in my heart that the numbers are going to be amazing, but we just know what they are is something we must have as our deliverable. And my brothers, as your general president, it will be so.
Brothers of the old gold and black, I am Brother Hebrew Dixon, the candidate for the 37th General President. Your choice for the next leader of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Life member number 6307. I'm excited about my investment in the fraternity in those many years ago. We're excited about what life membership means. It means that you're committed, but I'm challenging you today to make sure that you continue to invest and engage in the workings of this organization. Life membership is not a place to pause, it's a place to celebrate this amazing group of brothers and to engage in leadership across this amazing organization. My brothers of life membership status, my life member brothers, the Black and brown communities across this world need you more than ever. We are all needed to engage what we call generational relevance, harnessing the power of Alpha Capital.